What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the MCU Rewatch Reviews series. It's all been built into this for almost over 20 movies. Today we're talking about Avengers, Infinity War, and as always, joining Chris and I. Well, first of all, I should probably welcome Chris here onto the call. We're going to be talking Infinity War here today. Chris, it's all been building to this. Welcome back to the show, my man. How are you?
I'm doing great.
And people can find you on the Twitter machine at BR_Doctor. And as we have for every other Avengers installment here in this lengthy series that we've been doing, we're welcoming back on Nick, as he's been on for the first Avengers movie, the second Avengers movie, Age of Ultron. And now, Nick Torres, you're here on for Infinity War as well. So, Nick, welcome back.
Hello. I thought this was for Shrek, not for Avengers.
Hey, when I was rewatching Endgame recently, and we had that first scene with Thanos and like the farm thing, I thought that was Shrek. So you're not actually too far off. You're not actually too far off. But there's a ton to get to with this movie. I've seen this probably no less than a dozen times in the last 2 years since it came out. Do you have a rough number of how many times you saw this movie, Nick, since it first came out 2.5 years ago?
I think at that point we were still working at the theater together, so I must have watched it, probably over a dozen times while I was in the theater.
Yep.
And then at home too, many more times.
Well, I think with it, I was thinking Endgame, but it was definitely Infinity War, where I think we saw the employee showing on a Wednesday, and then you came back, I think the very next day, didn't you, to see it again?
Yeah.
What about you, Chris? How many times have you seen it? What'd you say off the top of your head since it first came out?
I mean, all the way through, maybe 4 or 5 total. I mean, I've seen it in like portions other times, but yeah, all the way through, maybe 4 or 5.
Are you one of those people like Nick and I that can go see the movie multiple times in theaters, or do you see it once with any movie, not just Avengers, that you see it once and you're like, all right, I'm set, I'm good, I don't need to see it again in theaters?
I typically see movies once in the theaters. I think the only one I went to see twice in the theater just because other people wanted to go see it was Guardians 1.
Oh, okay. You saw that one multiple times.
Yeah, I typically don't go to the theater more than once for a movie just because it can just be so expensive up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. In the Chicago area you're talking about, right?
Yeah, everything's expensive up here.
No, that's totally understandable. I mean, I think for a certain point, after I see it the first time, I'm so hyped I want to see it again. And then I think after the third or fourth time, I think I'm just going to see it to see other people's reactions. Like, I probably go with different people each time just to see how they would react to it. And like I said, I've been really excited to talk about this movie for a while. It's one of my favorite movies ever. That's no exaggeration. Chris, I'll start with you. What was your anticipation level for this Infinity War movie that we've talked about it before, was announced way back when in 2014 when they first laid out the Phase 3 of the MCU? This was in the works for quite some time. What was your anticipation level for Infinity War going into its release?
I mean, it was pretty high. I, of course, had my reservations just because it was going to be so big. I was like, how are they going to service all these characters at once? Because Ultron kind of failed in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like they found a nice balance. So, yeah, I was really looking forward to it just in terms of, like, the spectacle that I knew was coming.
From what you had seen and what you had known about the comics, were you expecting anything different from the Infinity War movie itself compared to what you read in the comics?
Well, I never read most of the Infinity Saga stuff. I've just kind of skimmed it a little bit. But based on what I know of the comics, I knew we weren't going to get that exact same story just because the MCU doesn't have the living embodiment of death. Mm-hmm. Which was a huge part of it in the comics. So I'm glad they went a different direction. I'm glad that they gave him a reason that, even though is ridiculous, is justifiable from his end, instead of I'm just trying to impress this woman who is basically death.
Yeah, exactly. Well, are you a fan of the direction they went in instead with the whole wipe out 50% of life thing on all planets, as opposed to the whole death angle, which they initially teased in the end of the first Avengers movie, but obviously they didn't go in that direction.
Yeah, I do, because villains who don't think they're the villain of their own story are always more interesting than mustache twirling, I'm just gonna destroy the world for the sake of destroying the world kind of people.
Yeah. No, definitely. What about you, Nick? What was your anticipation level in the? Are you familiar with the Infinity War comic, and if so, how much?
It's the same thing as Chris. Like, I skimmed it a lot. I never fully dove in and really paid attention to it too much.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that certain characters we were never going to see certain characters that were in the Infinity War Saga comics, because we haven't even talked about them. If we did, if we saw it in an end credit scene, or for that matter, I don't think was Guardians 2 out at this time.
Yes, it was. Yep.
So we got teased at the end of Guardians with
Adam Warlock,
Gold people, yeah, and he was a big role in the Infinity Saga comics,
mm-hmm.
but we still didn't get him. So I knew that we weren't gonna have a direct copy. But aside from that, I think my anticipation was high because, like Chris said, I was scared about how they were going to have all these characters instead of one big movie, but seeing Civil War and that being my favorite movie of all time.
Wow, okay.
That for me, well, not of all time. I would say Winter Soldier is my favorite of all time.
Wow,
but,
okay, nice.
Civil War really showed that they can handle more than two characters on screen at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't too worried about coming into this one and really thinking oh my God, these characters they're going to have 10 different characters on screen at a time. I just knew they were going to pull it off.
I may be wrong, Nick, but I could have sworn leading up to the movie that you didn't see any previews for it at all. Is that right?
Yeah, no, I didn't want to.
You stayed away from the trailers?
Refused. Yep.
Yeah, Chris, did you do the same thing, or did you watch it? Because listen, I'm the biggest fan of the world. I'm the type of person as soon as it goes up, I can't resist myself, and I'm on Twitter constantly, so there's no way I'm not going to see it. But so I definitely watched it on day one, and I was fucking hyped. But that's also a good approach to take, and not wanting to know anything about it whatsoever. What about you, Chris? Do you check out the trailers or no?
Yeah, I can't avoid that stuff just because I'm on YouTube so much for work, and that trailer was before every freaking video for about a month. So, yeah, I mean, I was, even if I wanted to avoid it, I probably couldn't have, just because of all the other things that I watch. So, I didn't even make an effort to do that. And as far as spoiler reports go, so many people had so many different ideas of what this movie was going to be that I wasn't really concerned about anything getting spoiled for me. Plus, it's they already told this story in the comics. Thanos isn't going to win in the end, so there's only so many things that can really be spoiled. But luckily, none of the major changes to the MCU were spoiled for me. So the trailer, I felt they did a good job not really telling you much with the trailer to this movie, but also showing you enough to get you excited.
Oh, yeah, they definitely showed you enough to get excited. You go back and watch that trailer, it's amazing. The music, just the way Thanos, his presence in the trailer is great, too. How much of a rock, Nick, did you have to live under to not see any spoilers or see anything about this movie whatsoever going into it?
It was probably one of the hardest things to date, to avoid, because, like Chris said, it was on everything. Yeah. And, you couldn't avoid it. I might have maybe caught a glimpse, and I covered my eyes and peeked my eye through the cracks of my fingers and saw a little glimpse. But I just, for me, trailers, especially now, they give away so much, and trailers now can be 3 to 4 minutes long, and the movie can be a 2.5 hour movie, and they're showing you all the good parts.
Yeah.
So I was really scared with that, because it's this is a big freaking movie. I don't want to see a 2:30-minute trailer and get, all the good parts, and then, be okay, yeah, this part's coming in a movie right now. Here it comes,
Yeah.
I hate when trailers do that. So I really tried my damnedest to really avoid a lot of trailers.
Well, I think the best part about this trailer, there were actually two before it came out, two major trailers, and I think the best part about the movie was that if you go back and watch the trailer after watching the movie itself, there's a lot of things they alter on purpose so it doesn't give stuff away. The actual scene is different. For example, when they show Thanos and Captain America going at it and he's holding the gauntlet and whatever, that doesn't come until the very end of the movie. But in the gauntlet itself, you only see 2 stones in the trailer, whereas in the movie, you already had 5 by that point. Mm-hmm. So I think the way that they did that was really, really well done. They had that one scene in the trailer where they show everyone running down the battlefield or whatever. That was never even in the movie. And Hulk was his normal self, of course, which we barely saw in this movie. And there's so much stuff to get to. We don't have a ton of time, so I'll kind of get to the major points. But Nick, I'll start with you on this, knowing that you're a big Hulk fan. It's in your friggin'... We're talking on Skype right now. It's in your Twitter handle. It's in your Skype handle as well. What were your thoughts on the portrayal of Hulk in this movie and how he was completely powerless? That's what we saw in the opening scene with him getting overpowered by Thanos.
So the opening scene I felt like was awesome. I was like, all right, here's Hulk, like, whipping ass, and for a second there I thought he was going to beat Thanos. Obviously I knew it wasn't going to happen, but from him getting beat and then the rest of the movie him not ever appearing and being scared forever really bothered me a lot, because it's like, yeah, the Hulk can be scared, but the Hulk is always going to Hulk out and get mad. Mm-hmm. He's going to want that vengeance and that payback, so for me to see an entire movie where the Hulk is barely in it and doing nothing really, really bothered me a lot. But I knew they were doing that on purpose because they wanted you to see, like, him and the Hulk were having more communication between each other, and they were finally on the same level plane, instead of the Hulk just taking over and always raging out. So leading into, Endgame, I could see that they were going to go into, a different Hulk from what we are used to seeing.
Yeah. No, yeah, I could totally understand. I saw a lot of the same criticism from people saying that they wanted to see more of Hulk. They didn't like the fact that he was scared of Thanos, but I mean, it was great character development, though, leading into what we would see in Endgame, which we'll get to in a different podcast, of course. But what about you, Chris? What were your thoughts on Hulk in the movie and how he kind of came across?
I mean, if that's not a metaphor for erectile dysfunction, I don't know what it is. The most confusing part to me was, like, did Hulk just sit back and watch half of the Asgardians on the ship get killed before he decided to step in? Like, where was he during the whole fight?
Yep.
He was sitting in the corner twiddling his thumbs and like, oh God, should I go and attack now? Like,
yeah, so that made very little sense to me. But the one thing I don't remember who said this. It might have been Ruffalo, it might have been one of the Russos, but they gave a pretty good explanation for why Hulk wasn't coming out, and it didn't have anything to do with necessarily being afraid of Thanos. It was more that he was sick of Banner using him the way that he had been.
Right.
So, like, spending 2-3 years straight as the Hulk on Sakaar kind of changed him, of course, and now he's a more fully formed being with, like, thoughts and a voice. So he doesn't want to just be the tool used for violence anymore. And it's sort of something they've explored in some of the cartoons, too, and, like, the comics. So I wasn't surprised they went in that direction, but I was surprised he didn't at least come out during the final battle.
Right.
Like, as soon as Thanos showed up, I expected him to, like, literally bust out of the Hulkbuster armor as Hulk. Because that would have been such a great scene of him, like, raging out inside the armor and just destroying it from the inside and then just going ham on everybody until something took him out for a few minutes. Like, they didn't go in that direction. That's why I was like, man, I don't know what
it was a missed opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if they were to do it, I feel the fans of the Hulk or, you know, the Avengers in general, I feel like they would have been even more pumped. Not saying, like, the Hulk needed to, you know, kill Thanos or something, but at least, like, show that the Hulk, if you want to say the Hulk has a mind and that he is trying to, you know, stick up for himself now and not be used anymore, at least show that in the movie. You know, don't say that after the fact. Show that when he sees Thanos the next time, show, like, all right, I'm pissed off because you beat me last time, so I'm going to kick your ass. Regardless of what Bruce Banner is making me do all the time. Regardless of, you know, what the Avengers want me to do all the time, you know? Like, you beat me, so I'm going to beat you now.
Yeah, that's what made the most sense. That's what I was disappointed by. And again, we'll get to this when we review Endgame in a different podcast. But I'm thinking, okay, I wasn't bothered by it by the time this movie was over because I'm thinking, okay, they're building to it. Like, like in wrestling terms, Chris, where like the bad guy will win, but the good guy's going to come back eventually and get his win back. Hulk never got his win back. He just got his ass kicked. And, he was smart Hulk and whatever, Professor Hulk and Endgame. And again, that's a different discussion for a different day. But he never really got that moment with Thanos where he was like, listen, you kicked my ass, like you just said, Nick. Now I'm going to kick your ass. But we never really got that. So that's definitely... And again, I know there's so many characters. Like, one of my things after I first saw this movie was why we didn't get to see more of Thanos and Drax. Because after Drax had said in Guardians, it wasn't really Ronan's fault. Now I'm going after Thanos. Like, he was the one who killed my family, blah, blah, blah. And he mentions it. He ran after him when the whole collector scene in Infinity War. And he got fucking, like, spliced into little pieces for, like, 2 seconds. It's like... Obviously, you can't make everyone a threat to Thanos, but there were a few different stories that I thought could have gotten more emphasis.
He got a few shots in when they were fighting on Titan.
Did they?
Yeah, when they were all kind of like teaming up on him to try and take him down before Star-Lord screwed it up for everybody. Drax got in a few shots.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and watch it again, just because there's so much going on.
But another thing is, like, Thanos, they gave so many characters a reason to want to kill Thanos that some of them weren't going to get to do it.
No, 100%. Yeah, you can't satisfy everybody, so... No, that makes sense. There's so many characters, and not every single person's going to get their moment with Thanos before they get beaten or whatever. Like, Drax wasn't going to be the one to ultimately defeat Thanos. It was always going to be Iron Man or whoever, but that just made the most sense. But going back to the opening scene, you mentioned this earlier, Nick, about that opening scene and how great it was, and I totally agree. There's so many great opening scenes in the MCU. The Guardians one comes to mind. I know we had... Technically, the opening scene in Guardians is Peter Quill as a kid. I always constitute with him... the headphones in on Morag or whatever. That's what I kind of consider to be the opening scene, and that's one of my favorites. But the one here with Thanos just wrecking everyone on the Asgard ship, killing practically everybody, including Loki, including Heimdall, you see that. How much does that really set the stage for the rest of the movie and thinking, okay, they're taking no prisoners here. Loki's been here since the beginning, but he just fucking killed him by snapping his neck. Like, how great was that in setting the stage for the remainder of the movie?
I feel like that made everybody really scared of him, even though he was a fictional character. Like, I felt like everybody was like, holy fuck, there's got to be somebody in the universe right now that's the exact same way, that can potentially come down and kill us all. So I felt like that really set the tone to show you, like, Thanos is a person to be afraid of, to really be weary of what his next move is, because clearly he's irrational and will kill everybody just to get a simple rock.
Yeah, exactly. And literally, in the first 5 minutes of the movie, he does just that. He already had the Power Stone, and he had the Space Stone. That's what he got from the... I always get them confused, but he got the Space Stone, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has 2 stones by the first 5 minutes of the movie. So what were your thoughts in the opening scene, Chris? And also, I forgot to mention this, Nick, so I'll get your thoughts on this as well. The fact that they didn't show Thanos getting the Power Stone. He simply just mentioned, or it was mentioned later on, that he went to, what's the name of the planet? God, I'm blanking out here. Where the,
with the Collector?
Xandar, yeah, Xandar. Yep, yeah, with the Collector. And he just fucking wiped it out. And some people were hoping, maybe it's going to be a deleted scene in the DVD, and we never saw that. Like, they just kind of referenced it, and that was so what were your thoughts on that in the opening scene itself, Chris?
I mean, I liked the opening scene. I don't think we needed to see the battle with the Asgardians getting wiped out, because there was already going to be a bunch of CGI battles in this movie to begin with. So I thought, like, showing the battle having already taken place and Thanos' forces won decidedly, I think that immediately set him up as, super dangerous, because obviously you have a bunch of Asgardians who don't take shit, so they're gonna be tough to beat, and they just rip through them like tinfoil. So yeah, that definitely set the movie up really well. And plus, even though it was pretty obvious they were gonna find some way to bring Loki back, I did feel like the fact that his death was definitive this time, like, we're not even seeing that same version of Loki in that show. It'll be a past version. So like, they actually did kill Loki, and that's that made him look more dangerous than anything, because people have tried and failed to kill Loki many times.
Yeah,
exactly.
I thought that was great because the Loki that we're getting with the show, as you mentioned, Chris, is coming from Endgame. Of course, when he escaped from the 2012 version of the Battle of New York. So he's still going to be a bad guy. He won't have those years of character development, getting back on the same page as Thor, kind of becoming a good guy in a sense. We're not going to have any of that. He's just going to be a full-fledged bad guy still by that point. And I think that's the Loki that people really want to see and is to have his own show, not the Loki that we see here. Although, it goes both ways. But yeah, I think the little things about this movie, which we won't get into every single detail, but when Thanos says no resurrections this time, because he's come back to life at least twice before, if not 3 times, over the course of the MCU. Wow. So that tells you right there, this guy's dead for real. This version of Loki ain't coming back. That, when Loki said, right before he attempted to stab Thanos, he looked at Thor and he said, God of Mischief, Odin's son. And that goes back to what we were talking about many, many weeks ago, Chris, when we reviewed Thor, and I asked you, did they really reference the fact that Loki isn't, actually Thor's legitimate brother? He's adopted, he's one of the, God, what were the name of the people, the breed that he came from? What type of...
Ice Giants?
The Ice Giants. They never reference that again, but they actually do. I thought they didn't, but they did. And he mentioned here, he kind of comes full circle, says that he's Odin's son. So I thought that was great. But yeah, Nick, did you want to see the Battle of Xandar? I mean, of course, the battle that we saw here on the ship, as Chris said, I completely agree. I'm glad they didn't show the beginning of that. I think the way they set it up was perfect. We don't need to see every movie start with a battle.
No, exactly. I agree with Chris, too. To me, it's we don't need to see every little detail. We were going to get every little detail within this movie anyway. So what's missing one stone? Let him say that he went in there, kicked ass, got what he wanted, and bounced. Let's just leave it as be. There's no need to revert back and ask for it. It is the way it is. It's fine.
No, yeah, I agree. And one of the things that this movie I think did so well, as you guys both mentioned, was the just diverse cast of characters. And there's so many characters in this movie that they give an ample amount of screen time to, and there's less people in Endgame, and they're able to give them more character development and stuff like that. That's more about the original Avengers. This is really about kind of showing everyone the different combinations, like Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. We see the Guardians with Thor, which is great, among other pairings as well. We see Hulk and Doctor Strange for a little bit. And there's so many great combos. So, Nick, I'll start with you. Are there any combos in this movie that are among your favorites?
Ooh, my favorite combos.
And any other combos that we didn't see that you wanted to say?
No, I don't think there's any that I didn't see that I wanted to see. I think I liked a lot the Guardians and Thor. I think that was probably my favorite team up in this movie. Iron Man and Doctor Strange, that was cool. I like the banter between the both of them, but I felt like Thor and Star-Lord were 100% better than that banter that we saw in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody else agrees with me, but I feel like Guardians and Thor was probably the best.
No, that was my favorite as well. I was going to ask, would you want to see them have their own movie at some point, Nick? And whether it be Thor and Guardians 3 or Guardians and Thor 4?
I felt like the way they did it in this movie, showing the team ups and showing you hey, it's not just the original 5 that team up, it's other people as well. So I felt like if they showed it here, they can definitely make their own movie with Thor and Guardians with no problem. Those movies should happen because it's Avengers, it's an Avengers team up, but it doesn't need to have the original 5, or 6. They can go on their own adventures because that's what happens in the comics. You know what I mean? We should see that more instead of just their own individual movies.
Yeah. What about you, Chris? What were your favorite team-ups?
I was a big fan of the whole Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Spider-Man dynamic.
As a Doctor Who fan as well. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They weren't Doctor Who. I'm a fucking idiot. They were, Jesus. God, what's it called?
Oh, Sherlock.
They were in Sherlock. That's not even remotely close to Doctor. I don't know why I said that. Never mind. Continue.
Both very British franchises, but
yeah.
but yeah, I thought, because they did a great job, I felt like carrying over that mentor-mentee relationship that Stark has with Peter.
Yep.
Like, you can still kind of see that relationship a little bit in the way that they're talking to each other, and just how Tony is looking out for him by trying to send him back to Earth, but Peter just says fuck it and stays on the ship anyway.
Yeah.
But then, like, the whole battle of egos between Doctor Strange and Tony, because, like, Doctor Strange is a super egotistical guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he just has the ability to back it up, so it doesn't really come across as egotistical sometimes, because it's not a big ego if you can back up what you're saying, I guess, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But to watch those two just banter a little bit, like, in both the Sanctum Sanctorum and in the ship later, like, that was just so fun to me, because that's what these Avengers movies are supposed to be. It's supposed to be about bringing these characters together, many of which who have not met each other, and giving these little memorable scenes. Like, I love how Tony's just so uninterested in the beginning when Doctor Strange is explaining what's going on to him, and he's, like, stretching in the background,
yeah.
like, because he's in his workout clothes.
Yeah, when he's
Dr.
on the cauldron
Strange's,
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and Doctor Strange's cape smacks his hand away, and Tony's just like, I'll allow it. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many little moments like that, and I feel like those three together, Spider-Man, Tony, and Doctor Strange, had some great stuff that, even though we're not going to get to see Tony anymore, it'd be fun to see Doctor Strange and Peter interact a little bit here and there.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned
they're
that.
both in New York, you know, like, they're both New York
exactly.
guys. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know a lot of Avengers are New York based, but, like, Peter is so closely associated with New York in every medium.
Mm-hmm.
And Doctor Strange, like, he's literally protecting the Sanctum in New York. So I think it would be cool if one of them showed up in the other's movie, just to keep that relationship going a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. It's funny that you mentioned that about the whole egotistical thing about Doctor Strange. You make a great point there, and I feel like we touched upon this when we reviewed Doctor Strange a while ago, where he comes across like a complete dick in his own movie, at least early on. I feel like we don't really see that same side of Doctor Strange in the Avengers movies, because those are really the only movies that we see him. He hasn't had a sequel yet. That's not coming out till next year or the year after or whatever. He was in Ragnarok for like 5 minutes, and that was, you know, a cool scene, and that was great, but he didn't come across like the egotistical, like Tony just plays that part to a T. And I'm not saying it's you know, Benedict Cumberbatch's fault or whatever. I don't think it was Doctor Strange's fault. I think it's really just how they had him come across, and there's only so much, you know, again, screen time these guys have, but we don't really see that same ego, I think, that we got from Doctor Strange, at least early on in his movie. But other than that's just a minor gripe. I think that pairing as well was great. I love the great, you know, reunion that the Guardians had. Not reunion, but like the great meetup that they have with Tony and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man on the ship and the whole Why is Gamora thing. That's probably one of the best scenes in the entire movie. Would you guys agree?
Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Kind of on that same...
It reminded me...
Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead.
It
reminded me of like an old like Western movie, like a standoff, like between people that have the same agenda. You know, like that's why I felt like that was such a classic part in the movie, because it's like, you know, we used to see those in, you know, cowboy and Indian movies, or, you know, things when we watched as kids, you know, and getting that really made the point even more clear. Like, these people are from completely different worlds, and they still want to take down the one person, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I felt like that part, I love that part.
Well, I like, too, that since they didn't know each other, they both groups that thought the other was the enemy. So, like, when Doctor Strange goes, wait, what are you talking about? You want to kill Thanos? What master do you serve? And then Peter, you know, he was like, what am I supposed to say, Jesus? That was great.
That was great.
It's one of the best lines in the entire movie. I love it.
Yeah.
So, are you guys telling me that the Vision... I wrote Scarlet here, but I meant to say Wanda. The Vision-Wanda pairing isn't among your favorites? I mean, come on, Nick. I thought that the whole thing was great, right? I thought it was among your favorite parts of the movie.
No. No.
I think...
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I felt like, you know, they really tried to force that really hard to really make you feel bad for them when, you know, the inevitable happens. So, like, it's kind of reminding me of Age of Ultron, where we have Quicksilver and his sister, and they really try to like force that relationship of brother and sister bond forever together. Da, da, da. And it's like, I didn't feel bad when he got killed. It's like, oh shit, like I liked him, like I want to see him in more movies, but I didn't give two shits about him dying.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where I feel like they tried to like really force that upon us with this Vision and Scarlet Witch stuff, but that's like the whole Bruce Banner and Natasha thing too.
Were you mad that we didn't get any explanation or development of that relationship here in this movie? Again, it was acknowledged real quickly.
Hell no. Hell no.
What about you, Chris? Were you hoping for more Nat and Bruce, and what were your thoughts on the whole Scarlet Witch Vision thing?
The Scarlet Witch Vision thing, I don't think I have as much of a problem, because I feel like they were planting seeds for that early on anyway. Like, at the end of Ultron, he swoops in and saves her, and then in Civil War, they're like kind of flirting a little bit over making food, and
yeah,
and there was always going to be that relationship, because it's so important in the comics, the relationship between those two.
Right.
So I knew it was coming, and the fact that we're supposed to assume that time passes between these movies, to me at least, gives them a little leeway to skip certain parts of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like how, you see Pepper and Tony sort of start dating in one movie, and then by the next movie they're basically living together and engaged. You don't have to see those early moments of the relationship to know the relationship is real.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly.
And I love Paul Bettany. Like, that guy, I'll watch him do anything. He's such a great actor. So I knew that even if they didn't give him a lot to work with, he would emotionally be able to pull it off, at least just by his facial expressions and stuff, which is funny to say for an android character. But yeah, I don't think it was necessarily done poorly. Obviously, it's one of those relationships that suffered a little bit of lack of development because there were so many different things they had to do at once.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
As far as Bruce and Natasha go, I sort of feel like it was a mistake to pair them up to begin with.
Yep.
Because they weren't able to pay it off. Like, literally the only time you see remnants of that relationship is Natasha looks like almost a little sad that he's no longer going to be Bruce in the next movie.
Is she?
When they meet Professor Hulk at the restaurant.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And she sort of seems a little sad that he's in this state permanently now.
Mm-hmm. And then he does get upset when she dies too.
Yeah, he freaks out and throws a bench into the lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, it is one of those relationships that definitely, like, if they'd had the ability to give Hulk a solo movie in between Civil War, Ultron, and this, they could have developed that relationship more. But unfortunately, it's a victim of them trying to tell too many stories at once.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even with them trying to tell so many stories at once, I think they still did a great job of focusing on certain people. And one person I thought did a great job in this entire movie, and the emphasis they had on this character that we haven't even mentioned up to this point, was Gamora and her connection to Thanos being her son, being his son. That makes no sense. His daughter, the daughter of Thanos. Obviously they acknowledged that. We already knew that. It wasn't like, oh my god, it's her. Like, we knew that dating back to when we first saw her, but they haven't really talked about it at all, really much at all, since that first Guardians movie. And I like how she's really the key to all of this. And the relationship that she has with Peter. I know you and I, Chris, have talked about this before, how they're not all. What I loved about Guardians is how they're not all lovey-dovey by the end of that movie. Like, they're not even an outright couple by Guardians 2. It's kind of hinted at, but they don't even say I love you until this very movie, until right before she's about to die. So I thought that whole thing was great. And now she was kind of the key to everything. The Soul Stone sacrifice, which I think packed way more of a punch. And again, we'll get to this in the Endgame review in a couple of weeks, than the Hawkeye Black Widow thing, which would have worked better with two other people like Hulk and Black Widow, which again, we'll have that discussion another time. Maybe, but I think the Thanos Gamora, exchange and the return of Red Skull. That was another really, really good part of this movie. So I'm going to get your thoughts on that as well. Nick, I'll start with you.
Yeah, dude, I honestly don't even know what to say after that, because that was like everything I would have said, honestly.
So
I feel like,
yeah, go ahead.
So for the Red Skull thing, I felt like that really connected, the worlds together. Yep. Being that Captain America started off and he defeated Red Skull and so on and so forth. But was that in this movie? No, that was in Endgame.
No, it was in both, but Red Skull was in both movies, though.
Oh, because we saw Gamora get killed. That's
yeah, and he was there for that.
Right,
yeah.
That's right. I totally forgot about that shit.
There's so much stuff going on.
I know, dude. That's where it's like, what?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, the Gamora thing, I don't know, man. I don't know how to answer your question. I really don't. Well, it's one of those things where it's like,
yeah, well, there's really
no
question, but yeah, it is really what it is. There's not much analysis. I was just saying I like the fact how she was kind of a focal point in the movie and how they kind of paid that off and her with the story arc with her dad and then he kills her.
Yeah.
I just thought it was well done. There's really not much more to analyze there, but I will say
it's fucked up, like
yeah, it's a little
fucked up that you raise this little girl to be your daughter, to be the most best weapon that you have in your arsenal, and then for you to just throw it away because you want to take over the world and get rid of the population. It's like, well, wouldn't you want to keep your daughter? I understand that she fucking like betrayed you and shit, but come on, dude. Like, you clearly have some sort of heart if you think that you're helping, quote unquote, helping the world by extinguishing half of the population to make it better. It's like, wouldn't you want your daughter with you by your side? Like,
yeah.
Fucking manipulate her with a stone or something,
Yeah, no, definitely. That scene where they show baby Gamora and he's like shielding her eyes from like her parents and half of the population on her planet getting killed is probably one of the darkest, if not the darkest part of this entire fucking movie. Where you can see part of it too, the people getting shot. It's like, holy shit, like that's some pretty fucked up terrorist esque shit here.
That's some hardcore shit.
It really is. Any additional thoughts on that, Chris? The whole Gamora thing, her backstory, her death, and her role in the movie overall?
I mean, she was the only character that made sense for Thanos to sacrifice. So, I mean, it is what it is. I don't know what they're gonna do, because like, obviously the next Guardians movie is going to be about them trying to find her and bring her back to the team. So it's like they're going to have to develop that relationship with Peter all over again, because this is a Gamora who's never met him, let alone cares about him at all. I'm more interested to see how this Gamora deals with like a changed Nebula, who like wants her as a sister now more than I am to see how her and Peter are. But I did like that scene actually on Vormir or whatever it is, where he has to sacrifice her, because I felt like that at least did establish that the love Thanos had for her was legitimate.
Right.
And he clearly was very sad that that's the sacrifice he had to make, but at the same time he's so far into this plan that he has no choice but to go through with it.
Yeah.
See, so my question is to you guys, why didn't he just use Nebula? If Nebula is an android pretty much, like, why didn't he just get rid of her? Like,
well, he doesn't.
I don't think they knew until he got there, right, Chris?
Well, I don't. Well, for one, Nebula, he doesn't. He didn't know what he had to do till he got there, and Nebula wasn't there. But two, I don't think he loves Nebula.
Yeah, no, he doesn't give a fuck about her. To be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
He was just torturing her. I don't think we ever see him torture Gamora. He's only torturing Nebula. Poor Nebula for like 3 movies. That's why she's so like bitter all the time.
Literally.
So yeah, that's probably why. Kind of on a semi-unrelated note, but it is in the same scene. Chris, I'll start with you. The return of Red Skull. Were you surprised by that? I mean, it's not even a case where, oh shit, I heard that the actor from that originally played Red Skull was, being rumored for the movie. Maybe they're bringing him back. It wasn't even the same guy. So did you know about that until they actually showed the character in this movie?
No, I didn't know he was coming back until I saw it in the movie. And then once I heard who was playing him, it made sense because that guy, Ross Marquand, is really good at imitating other people.
Oh, there you go.
He was on The Walking Dead for a few years as kind of a side character. He had some important storylines, but he wasn't one of the main characters in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I would see him doing interviews for that, people would always make him do impressions because he's so good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, as soon as I looked it up and saw that it was him doing Red Skull, I'm like, oh, they actually got a guy who's, like, known for this. And then somebody who's young enough to keep coming back and playing Red Skull if they want him as a villain for, you know, the Winter Soldier and Falcon moving forward or something.
Yeah. No, that's possible. Were you surprised, Nick, when you saw Red Skull pop up on Vormir?
Yeah, it was really random. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, why did you choose that character out of everybody else?
Did you forget that he was even still alive technically after the first movie that he was in?
Yeah, because we haven't seen him since what 2011, I think, 4 or 5, whenever the hell Captain America came out.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where it's like, oh shit, yeah, that guy, I remember him.
Mm-hmm.
But like for the casual viewer, who doesn't really go to every single film and only goes and sees it with their boyfriends and girlfriends, whatever. But it was just a really random person to have in that realm.
Yeah.
I guess it made sense.
Would you have preferred someone else in that role, or was it like, oh, it's a cool cameo because they never actually killed off his character initially?
I guess it's a cool cameo because it's like, all right, cool. We're seeing. I mean, my only thing is like, now thinking about it, maybe they can somehow get him out of that realm and like use him in like future stories,
Mm-hmm.
The Russos did say that once he was no longer guarding the stone, he's kind of just free in the Marvel universe now. So I do hope that means he's coming back.
Well, does that mean
that'd be awesome.
Does that mean when Captain America goes back in time, which this was never explained, in Endgame, when he puts back the Soul Stone, supposedly, at the end of that movie, does that mean Red Skull's like, no, fuck, I don't want to go back? Like, what happens then?
That's a little bit of a plot hole, yeah. I mean,
how do you even put that back? Do you just put it back in the water? It's like, oh, here you go. We don't want it anymore. Like, can that even be undone? Like, I don't understand that.
He flipped a fucking stone like a quarter and then the water.
Also, I want to see the scene. Because he had to go back to the moment they were taken, right?
Yes.
So they established that like in order to preserve the timelines, he has to return them pretty much at the same time that they were taken. So what I want to see is the scene where Captain America's like hiding behind a rock, watching Clint and Nat fight each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then he watches her die, and then Red Skull's all elated that he's like, oh, I don't have to guard this stupid stone anymore. And then he turns around and sees Steve holding the stone, and he's just like, God damn it. There's so many possible funny, like, cartoon shorts that people could produce out of the unseen moments in these movies.
100%. That sounds like Back to the Future 2, when they revisit the first movie, but just from a different point of view, with the modern day, with the present day, fucking Marty McFly. That's what that reminds me of. But yeah, like a twist on that would be great. And as soon as you said that, I'm thinking cartoon. I feel like that might have already been done. Maybe not. There's
a YouTube series called How It Should Have Ended.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Which I don't think they did that scene necessarily, but I'm sure they did something related to this movie. And it's always these little cartoon shorts that are kind of like, they're kind of logic breakers for shows. Like, they'll have characters just flat out point out things that they should have done in the movies and TV shows that they didn't, and it's always really funny. But there are so many opportunities in this movie, like a scene of the Hulk just watching all the Asgardians getting killed before finally deciding to help when Loki calls him out. Like, there's got to be a scene where Loki's like, wait for my signal.
I know, wait for the cue.
Do not do anything. I don't care how many people die. Do not come out before I make it known. Like,
I know.
But logical inconsistencies are bound to happen with these kind of movies. And really, especially in a time travel movie, there's always going to be something to pick apart. So,
you know what's the perfect example of that?
What's that?
The best Marvel movie of all time, Captain Marvel.
What's the inconsistency there? Aside from you saying that it's the greatest movie.
The inconsistency is the entire movie. It's inconsistent.
We should add
that movie is... Huh?
No, I was going to say, we already did the review for that one. We recorded that one a while ago with an artist that works with WWE. Oh, God. We had actually, Rob was pretty favorable towards the movie, though, I think. Right, Chris? We didn't really shit on it all that much. I mean, it's definitely the weakest, but I don't think we sat there and pooped on it a lot.
None of us hated it. We just wanted it to be better because that character deserved better.
Yeah. Exactly.
That was...
Like, Captain Marvel was 1,000 times more powerful than anyone else, and that's why they had to write her out for all of the Infinity Saga until the very last scene, because she's the Superman of this universe, like,
right.
And she doesn't even have the kryptonite weakness, so it's like she's a character that they need. Like, this is a term that you hear a lot in movies. It's called fridging, where they put somebody in the fridge until they're needed. And it's usually done with female characters that the male characters have to save. A lot of people accuse them of doing that with Vanessa in Deadpool.
That's true. Yeah, I can see that.
Oh, they fridged the character by killing her off in the first 10 minutes of the movie and then only showing her in these little scenes in heaven when Deadpool's about to die. And
yeah.
Right.
So like, with her, it's almost necessary to do that because she turns the tide so far in the Avengers' favor that, like, I don't know. It's weird, so... But yeah, we didn't necessarily hate the movie. Like, I just wish it had been better.
No, I agree.
That's the problem. Yeah, I didn't fully hate it. It's just like it's such a powerful character, a powerful role, and for them to do it the way they did it just really made it shit. You know.
Well, going off of that real quick as we wind down, I know we only got a couple minutes left, but the post-credit scene did introduce Captain Marvel, setting up her movie that came out the following year. Did you like that, Nick, and the big reveal of the Captain Marvel emblem on the fucking thing?
Yeah, like, especially, like, thinking back to the Infinity Saga comics, like, she's a huge role in it. Granted, like, I think there's like 2 or 3 different variations of the story, but I know the one that I remember, she's like the one that, defeats Thanos for everybody, you know? So seeing her, for me, it was like, all right, sweet. Now she's finally here and she's going to kick some ass,
Yeah.
It's not just going to be, the few that we've seen already. It's going to be her, like, really helping out the team and really showing, like, she's the savior.
Yeah, definitely. No, I thought that was well done. I like the whole post-credit scene too, and how they kind of alluded to, not just there, but earlier on in the movie, where Ant-Man was, where Hawkeye was, and why they weren't in the movie, and obviously we saw them a lot more in Endgame. They play much bigger roles there. What were your thoughts, real quickly, Chris, on the post-credit scene, the introduction of Captain Marvel into the MCU?
I liked the way it was done because it was one of those things where it's like, if you don't know what that symbol is, you're immediately going to go look it up.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's what I did. I don't think when I saw them, like, oh, I have honestly no clue because I'm not as knowledgeable as you guys are. So I saw that, I'm like, oh, okay. And I think when we saw the movie, Nick, with everyone else, I think someone said it. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I had no clue. So yeah, but it was still cool though.
But it left it off like how Avengers 1 was left off, with Thanos coming up at the end credits scene.
Exactly.
And everybody's like, who's that? What is that? And I feel like that really led to the next film because everybody's anticipating, everybody's Googling it and looking it up and saying who it is and stuff. So I felt like that really, was the Hershey kiss to the movie, the cherry on top. Like, hey, look, we're connecting, the first post-credit scene and teasing a new character.
Yeah. No, I thought it was great. It was a great way to set up the Captain Marvel movie that came out the next year, the Ant-Man movie that came out a couple months later that kind of took place simultaneously. They did a really good job with this whole thing. in terms of setting up what was to come with Endgame. And there's really not much to analyze at the end here, just because I thought what they did was just so great. The whole dusting away thing, how Vision, that was the best part. So when Vision sacrifices himself to Scarlet Witch, and then it's like, oh, they destroyed the stone, it's all set. And then Thanos is like, nope, no, we don't. And then he just redoes the whole thing and he fucking kills him himself.
Yeah.
God, that was awesome. That whole scene where Thanos is just walking in Wakanda, knocking Avengers down left and right.
Dude.
There's like 10 of them, and he just knocks them all down. I don't think I've ever seen a bigger badass than in that scene. It was awesome.
It's like a dad with like a group of like 2-year-olds playing football. It's just like pushing them down out of the way. But even that like whole fight scene, like that entire like sequence was probably one of the better ones since the first Avengers movie. You know,
100%, yeah.
I my still number one favorite would be Civil War in the airport scene. Like that was probably like for me like that was like euphoric for me. Like that was everything. Obviously, like Endgame beat that. With everybody teaming up, but that scene was awesome. Thor coming down with
bring me Thanos,
like that shit was awesome. Did anybody cry when everybody turned to ash?
I think I came close. I don't know if I cried, but I don't know if I got as emotional during that as I did. And this was just what fucking killed me. So the movie ends with Thanos. We just see Thanos and then it's over, which I thought was awesome. And then they do the credits. Before the credits, though, like they have like the main credits first. And you know how it said Avengers Infinity War and then that dusted away? That got me emotional. I don't know why, because they're like slowly playing the Avengers theme, the piano version. That was, honestly, I don't know why. The main version didn't make me really cry at all. It came close. I came close. But until I saw that, I'm like, holy shit, that's so fucking sad. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen anything so depressing in my life. Oh, God, that was great.
Funny story.
Yeah, go ahead.
I brought my little brother to see this movie, and when that scene happened, I was like, all right, he's gonna like be sad, obviously, because everybody's sad, whatever. And my girl like started crying too when she watched Tom Holland die, because the way he died, I think everybody like fucking broke down at that point. But my brother like full on cried, like as if it was like a family member that we knew. Like he was just crying so hard. And then when the credits came up, he was like, "Is he really dead? Is he gone forever?"
That's great.
But yeah, that scene for me, I don't know about you, Chris. That for me was like, oh fuck, like this guy means business, you know?
Yep. Yeah. So what were your thoughts, Chris? What were your thoughts on the whole death scene of everyone dusting away? Was the Spider-Man death the most emotional for you?
No.
Wow, Chris. Coming in with
I gotta be honest with you. Like
Chris, you're gonna be the person that goes up to Nick's brother and like, yeah, he is actually fucking dead. Fucking deal with it.
But like, I don't know. The scene where he dies, like, that felt like it was out of a 40s movie to me, where I practically expected Tony to be like, "Please don't go," or something. Like, they definitely, don't get me wrong, it was well done, but like, as far as like crying, these movies don't elicit that kind of reaction out of me. It's more, I was more shocked than anything that they killed off like all the new characters.
Yeah.
But then when I thought about it more, I was like, this makes sense, because this is really the end of some of these guys' stories, so they need to be the main focus. The new generation will carry the mantle. Unfortunately, we didn't know what was going to happen with Chadwick, so it would have been nice had Black Panther been able to stay in and have a larger role in Endgame as well. But I felt like, because I rewatched this movie last night, and I will say that like watching his death obviously had a bigger impact this time around,
especially now. Exactly.
So as far as like all those death scenes go, I think the one maybe that probably at least affected me the most was actually the one with Vision, because I felt like Elizabeth Olsen did do a really good job of like portraying the emotions of the character in that scene where she's like, she knows that in order to save everybody, she has to kill the person she loves the most. And I did think that was a fun scene.
Mm-hmm. That was a great scene.
And then when she watches him get brought back and killed again, like that's the most hard part.
That's so fucked. Yeah, it's terrible.
It is fucked.
What were you gonna say, Nick?
Because like she's dealt with the most death out of everybody. Like her brother fucking got killed, and it's like, all right, like that was because of Ultron, her parents, and now her fucking love of her life that is a fucking robot for some god reason. But like, you know, now he's fucking gone, and it's like this poor fucking chick, like she can't catch a break, you know. But like, you know, she's powerful as shit. Like she to me is number 2, just below Captain Marvel. Like she is super strong. You know,
she's even more powerful because the only reason she didn't flat out kill Thanos with the snap of her finger is because all his ships started raining fire down on the
in Endgame. Yeah,
well, like she was preparing to rip him in half. Like,
oh yeah, dude, she was ready.
She tore Ultron's chest open and ripped his heart out without any effort. Like Scarlet Witch is flat out the most powerful character in the MCU right now. She just doesn't understand her powers yet.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm really looking forward to her show and the Doctor Strange movie that she'll be in, because I feel like those are really going to explore the depths of what she's capable of, and I really hope they use her to bring the mutants into the movies.
Dude, that would be sick.
Because it would almost be like a reverse of the comic book storyline where she's responsible for killing most of the mutants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a good way to bring him in. Yeah, we'll see. That's been popular speculation, so I guess we'll see where that goes. No, she was a good part of this movie, too. I completely forgot about her role in that part of the end. Having to kill her own husband or boyfriend or lover, or whatever you want to call her, and then having to see her watch it over again, but Thanos is the one killing Ultron, or Vision, is just terrible. It almost makes me laugh just because it's so terrible. It was a great scene though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the whole thing is great. Everyone gets dusted away. The movie's over. Thanos is just standing there like Shrek. He just started blasting. Somebody once told me in the movie, it's a perfect scene, you know? Man, I love this movie. So, Nick, I know we got to let you go. Any real quick thoughts before we wind down here on Infinity War on the whole?
I don't think there's anything. I think, you know, this movie is still up there. Like, the Russo brothers fucking kill everything that they touch, man. Yep. And, you know, it started off with Winter Soldier, I believe, right? Because that was the first one they did together.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
But they just set the bar high. Like, there's still not going to be any franchise that anybody will ever be able to do that will top this for me.
Definitely. What about you, Chris? What were your overall thoughts on Infinity War?
I mean, I love Infinity War. I think if I had to compare it to Endgame, I actually think I like this movie like 1 or 2% more.
Mm-hmm.
Just because Endgame, like, there's so much of that movie where everyone's just so depressed. And with this movie, I feel like because they were able to pair off a lot of different characters and have these scenes of so many characters meeting for the first time, like, this is the movie, even though the other Avengers movies were big team-ups, like, this is the movie that really combined all of the cosmic stuff with all of the Earthbound stuff, and it was just so much fun to see all those interactions. I think that's what won me over, was all those first-time meetings and seeing how people interacted with each other. It just made this a lot of fun.
Definitely. I mean, being a big Guardians fan, I was, from the moment that movie came out, 4 years before Infinity War did, I'm thinking, okay, I can't wait to see them interact with the Avengers. I was hoping for it in Age of Ultron. I was hoping for it in the second Guardians movie. I was hoping for some sort of like a post-credit scene where they meet up. And we finally got that in this movie. They waited, and it was worth the wait. But all the interactions were great. I love the movie on the whole. Yeah. And it was one of my favorite movies.
Iron Man with all of the Guardians was amazing. Like,
that was great too, yeah.
When him and Peter are going back and forth jabbing each other, that was great. But then when, like, he gets mad at Drax for just not listening to his plan. And you can see like the look of frustration on Robert Downey Jr.'s face. Like, he didn't have to say anything. You just see that look, that defeated look of like, I'm working with morons. Just go right. It was so perfect.
Yeah, and then Peter was like, that 50% part of me that's human, that's an idiot, that's 100% of you. Like, that whole scene was great when Peter was like, is Footloose still the greatest movie of all time? And then Peter's like...
And then he's just like, nice math.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's great. It's great. It's got a lot of rewatch value. It's 2.5 hours long. It doesn't really feel like that, though. When I just got done watching Endgame last night, that's the same exact movie. It doesn't feel like it's 3 hours, which we will discuss in a couple weeks here on the show with you, Nick. This has been awesome. People can find you on the Twitter machine at NickTheHulk93. Chris, you on Twitter at BR_Doctor. This has been awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Any closing thoughts, Nick, before we wind off, right off into the sunset here?
I love you guys, and go watch Shrek.
Love you too, Nick. This has been great. Chris, any final thoughts?
I've never seen Shrek.
Really?
Nah, I've seen most of it. I can't get through it. It's a little too juvenile for me.
Oh, dude.
All right, Chris.
If you the second one, you gotta watch. Man.
The second one's a masterpiece. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a masterpiece of storytelling. I think before we get to any more Marvel movies, Chris, I know we've been having discussions for a while that we're going to break down the other Spider-Man movies, the older ones, X-Men, Howard the Duck with Robin and stuff like that. I think before we get to any of that, I think what you got to do for me is watch the Shrek movies, and then we can review those, and then we can get to the Marvel stuff.
God.
So then we can have this dynamic where I'm sitting here praising everything, and you're like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's honestly, based on my thoughts of the first movie, that's exactly what it would be.
And I can't fucking wait for it, so I'm looking forward to that. Thanks so much, guys. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Alrighty, guys.
Take it easy.